Magneto was right. No, I don't mean in the Magneto did nothing wrong meme way. I mean he was right about the one thing that separates mastermind villains from forgettable ones. And it's the same thing most heroes never understand until it's too late. X-Men 97 isn't just the best Marvel project in a decade. It's a masterclass in villain psychology. Bastion, Mr. Sinister, Magneto, Apocalypse, and now Kang himself, wearing the face of a pharaoh and pulling strings across millennia. These aren't just bad guys with cool powers. They're case studies in ideology, obsession, trauma, and the terrifying proximity between conviction and cruelty. And here's what I find most fascinating. After watching both seasons, every episode, every monologue, every quiet moment where the villain makes a choice that you almost understand, I realized something uncomfortable. The villains of X-Men 97 taught me more about power, conviction, and human nature than the heroes ever could. This isn't a power ranking. I'm not asking who would win in a fight. I'm asking a different question, one that this show asks better than any Marvel project before it. What does this villain teach us about the world we actually live in? Every villain in X-Men 97 is a mirror, and the reflection isn't always flattering. We're going to move through 10 villains, 10 lessons, and every single one of them left something behind in my thinking. I'm going to show you exactly what. Number 10. Kang the Conqueror. The arrogance of playing God. Number 10. And this one is fresh. Kang the Conqueror, appearing as Rama Tut in Season 2's Rise of Apocalypse two-parter. X-Men 97 does something remarkable with Kang. He doesn't arrive with an army. He doesn't descend from the sky in a warship. He arrives in ancient Egypt, 3,000 years before the X-Men exist, and he positions himself as a god. Kang doesn't conquer by force. That's what makes him terrifying. He conquers by arriving early, before anyone knows what he is, before resistance is even conceivable. He wins the war before his enemies are born. Kang's power isn't his technology, though it's centuries beyond anything else on Earth. His real power is information asymmetry. He knows what's going to happen. He knows who will be born, who will rise, who will fall. And he uses that knowledge to position himself at the center of history before history knows he's there. The lesson Kang taught me cuts deep. How many people in positions of power today operate exactly like this? They don't defeat you in a fair fight. They show up early. To the meeting before the meeting, to the decision before it's announced, to the narrative before it's challenged. By the time you arrive, the outcome is already determined. Lesson number 10. The most dangerous power isn't the ability to defeat your enemies. It's the ability to shape the battlefield before anyone realizes there's a war. Kang doesn't outfight history. He out-arrives it. Number 9. Mojo, the spectacle of cruelty. Number 9. Mojo. He only appears in half an episode. Motendo, Season 1, Episode 4. But what he represents is arguably more relevant in 2026 than when the character was created. Mojo is a being who feeds on audience engagement. He traps Jubilee and Sunspot inside a video game and forces them to fight through recreations of their own traumatic battles. Genosha, the Savage Land, Days of Future Past, all while he watches, entertained. Mojo doesn't hate Jubilee. He doesn't have a vendetta. He's worse than that. He finds her suffering content. And in a world where real human tragedy gets scrolled past between dance videos and sponsored posts, tell me Mojo isn't the most contemporary villain on this list. Here's what makes Mojo uniquely disturbing. He's the villain as algorithm, optimizing for engagement regardless of the human cost. He doesn't care what happens to his content, he just needs the numbers to go up. Sound familiar? Mojo is a grotesque parody of what the attention economy does to empathy. When everything becomes content, nothing is sacred. Your pain is somebody's afternoon scroll. Lesson number 9. The villain who treats your life as entertainment is more dangerous than the one who hates you. Hatred is at least honest. Spectacle is indifferent. And indifference kills more slowly and more thoroughly than any weapon. Number 8. The friends of humanity. The mob wears a tie. Number 8. The friends of humanity. Led by the executioner, the FOH gatecrash Magneto's trial at the United Nations in Episode 2. Armed with radiation weapons capable of depowering mutants. They don't just hate mutants. They've industrialized their hatred. This is mob psychology, tribalism, the terrifying speed with which fear transforms into organized violence. Here's the thing about the friends of humanity that makes them more terrifying than Apocalypse. You've met people like this. You've read their comments. You've seen their rallies on the news. They don't think they're villains. They think they're patriots. The Villainologist lesson here is about the architecture of hate. Hate doesn't start as violence. It starts as just asking questions, then legitimate concerns, then protecting our way of life. Each step is small enough to feel reasonable. The end point is a radiation weapon aimed at a mutant at the UN. But nobody in the mob ever thinks they personally crossed a line. And when the executioner's weapon strikes Storm instead of Magneto, stripping her of her powers, the damage ripples through the entire season. One act of mob hatred, permanent consequences. Lesson number 8. The scariest villains are the ones who believe they're the heroes of their own story. Conviction without self-examination is the engine of atrocity. Number 7. Henry Gyrich, the danger of a little authority. Number 7 is a man without powers, without an army, without a secret weapon. Henry Gyrich. And he's one of the most effective antagonists in the entire X-Men universe. Let me tell you why. Gyrich has exactly one asset: bureaucratic authority. That's it. He controls access. He controls funding. He controls which forms get signed and which meetings happen. And with that tiny scrap of institutional power, he has paralyzed the X-Men more effectively than Magneto ever could. Here's what I find most disturbing about Gyrich. He's not particularly smart. He's not particularly charismatic. He doesn't have a grand vision. He's just a man who realized that the person who controls the pen controls everything. In Episode 7, Gyrich demonstrates exactly how this works. He doesn't need to fight mutants. He just needs to be the person who decides which prisoners get released, which policies get enforced, and which doors stay locked. Rogue has to break into a prison to confront him, because his power isn't physical, it's procedural. Gyrich teaches us that competence and malice are completely independent variables. You can be mediocre at everything except obstruction, and still cause catastrophic damage. Lesson number 7. Never underestimate the villainy of small authority. The person who can say no to the right thing at the right time can do more damage than a superweapon. Number 6. Cable, the tragedy of certainty. Number 6 is different, because number 6 isn't a traditional villain at all. Nathan Summers, Cable, operates as an antagonist across Season 2. He's gathering his arsenal. He's preparing for apocalypse. He's willing to cross any line to prevent what he knows is coming, because he's seen the future, and the entire planet burns. Cable has seen the future. He knows what happens if he fails. So when he comes into conflict with the X-Men, is he a villain? Or is he the only person with the courage to do what must be done? This is where X-Men 97's writing ascends to another level. Cable is the cautionary tale about certainty. He's so convinced about what must be prevented that he becomes indistinguishable from the thing he's fighting. His knowledge of the future doesn't make him wrong about the threat, but it does make him blind to the cost. The lesson Cable taught me is uncomfortable. The line between hero making hard choices and villain justifying atrocities is thinner than any of us want to admit. Lesson number 6. Certainty is the most dangerous thing a person can possess. The moment you're absolutely sure you're right is the moment you stop noticing the damage you're causing. Number 5. Prime Sentinels, the monster we become. Number 5. The Prime Sentinels. This is Bastion's masterstroke, and it's one of the most disturbing concepts X-Men 97 introduces. The Prime Sentinels aren't robots. They're humans, converted, infected with techno-organic programming that overrides their free will and transforms them into weapons against mutant kind. The Prime Sentinels didn't choose this. That's what makes them terrifying. They were going about their lives, co-workers, neighbors, friends, and then Bastion's programming activated inside them, and suddenly they weren't themselves anymore. They were weapons, and they couldn't stop. The Prime Sentinels teach us about the horror of losing your own agency. You become the very thing you might have opposed. Your body moves, your hands fire weapons, your voice says things you would never say. But it's not you anymore. You're just the vehicle for someone else's hatred. Bastion didn't just build an army. He turned ordinary people into his soldiers without their consent, and made them watch themselves do it. Lesson number 5. The worst thing a villain can take from you isn't your life. It's your agency. Making you the instrument of your own destruction, that is a cruelty beyond simple violence. Number 4. Apocalypse, the tyranny of strong and weak. Number 4. En Saba Nur, Apocalypse, the first mutant. 5,000 years of accumulated power and philosophy. X-Men 97 does something remarkable with Apocalypse that most adaptations fail to do. They make him coherent. His philosophy, survival of the fittest, the strong must rule the weak, evolution through conflict, isn't just generic villain rhetoric. It's a worldview with internal logic. You can follow his reasoning from A to B, and that's what makes it dangerous. Apocalypse genuinely believes he's helping. He's not lying, he's not manipulating. When he offers to make mutants stronger, he means it. He views weakness as a disease and strength as a cure, and that belief has killed millions. Season 2's Rise of Apocalypse episodes reveal his origin, and the Kang connection makes it even richer. Kang's manipulation of ancient history helped shape the monster Apocalypse became. But Apocalypse took that seed and grew it into something uniquely his own. This is the lesson of Apocalypse. The most seductive evil is the one that frames itself as progress. Just getting stronger, just evolving, just removing weakness. These phrases sound noble until you realize that weakness is defined entirely by the person holding the power. Lesson number 4. Beware anyone who divides the world into strong and weak. The definition always shifts to place them at the top and you at the bottom. Number 3. Mr. Sinister, the pathology of obsession. Number 3. And before you say, obviously, I need you to hear why he's only number 3, because the reason might surprise you. Nathaniel Essex, Mr. Sinister, the man who turned a scientific fascination with the Summers Gray bloodline into a multi-generational experiment in genetic manipulation. Clones, breeding programs, murder dressed up as research. Mr. Sinister doesn't hate Cyclops. He doesn't hate Jean Grey. He doesn't hate anyone. He's far worse than that. He's curious. He finds them interesting. And there is no more terrifying word to hear from the person dissecting your life. Here's what X-Men 97 understands about Sinister that other adaptations miss. He's not motivated by revenge. He's not motivated by ideology. He's motivated by the purest, most unadulterated form of obsession. Scientific curiosity untethered from ethics, from empathy, from any recognition that his subjects are people. He'll compliment you while harvesting your DNA. He'll smile while discussing your genetic potential. And he means every word. That's what makes it so chilling. Lesson number 3. Obsessive curiosity without empathy is not science. It's predation. The person who finds you fascinating can be far more dangerous than the person who hates you. Hatred gets tired. Curiosity never does. Number 2. Bastion, the perfect weapon of hate. Number 2. Bastion. He's the fusion of machine and man. Nimrod's advanced Sentinel programming merged with human form. He can pass. He can speak softly. He can make arguments that sound reasonable at dinner parties. And his plan for mutant extinction is so methodical that by the time the X-Men realize what he's building, they're already inside it. Bastion is what happens when hatred evolves past emotion into architecture. He's not angry at mutants. Anger would be a weakness, something that could be appealed to, reasoned with, redirected. Bastion is the cold, algorithmic conclusion that mutants must be eliminated. Not because they've done anything wrong, because they exist. The Prime Sentinels, the wild Sentinel attack on Genosha, the systematic conversion of humans into weapons, all of it flows from a single coherent logic. And the most disturbing thing about Bastion is how persuasive he is when you don't know what he actually wants. Bastion taught me that the most dangerous ideology is the one that doesn't present as ideology at all. It presents as common sense, as just the way things are, as unfortunate but necessary. Lesson number 2. The most dangerous villain is the one who doesn't look like a villain, who speaks calmly, who has data, who frames atrocity as inevitability. By the time you realize what you're dealing with, you're already inside his system. Number 1. Magneto, the villain who makes you question everything. Number 1. Magneto. Eric Lensher, Holocaust survivor, mutant supremacist, terrorist, freedom fighter. The man who has been both the X-Men's greatest enemy and their leader. X-Men 97 gives us the most nuanced version of this character ever put on screen. Magneto is not wrong about the threat. Let me say that again. Magneto is not wrong about the threat. Humans have proven repeatedly across centuries that they will attempt to exterminate those they fear. What Magneto is wrong about is the solution. And that distinction between identifying a real problem and choosing the wrong response, that is the most important lesson of this entire show. X-Men 97 puts Magneto on trial, literally and figuratively, in Episode 2. And the show refuses to let you escape into easy answers. When Magneto talks about what humanity has done to mutants, you nod. When he talks about what must be done in response, you recoil. The show makes you hold both reactions simultaneously. This is the Villainologist layer at its deepest. Magneto represents the permanent scar of ideological threat, a worldview born from genuine trauma, forged in genuine persecution that has calcified into something capable of justifying atrocity. He's not a hypocrite. He's not secretly selfish. He genuinely believes mutant supremacy is the only path to mutant survival. And that's the terrifying lesson. You can be right about the problem and still become a monster in how you address it. Lesson number 1. The scariest villains are not the ones who are completely wrong. They're the ones who are partially right. They see a real injustice, they identify a real threat, and then they let that truth justify everything that follows. Magneto teaches us that trauma is not a license. Pain is not permission. And being right about the past does not make you right about the future. 10 villains, 10 lessons. Kang taught me that the most dangerous power is arriving before everyone else, and shaping the battlefield before anyone knows there's a war. Mojo taught me that treating suffering as entertainment is not a side effect of the attention economy. It's the engine. The Friends of Humanity taught me that the mob always believes it's the hero. Gyrich taught me that a little authority in the wrong hands is more dangerous than any superweapon. The Prime Sentinels taught me that the worst thing you can lose isn't your life. It's your agency. Cable taught me that certainty is a blade that cuts both ways, and you don't always notice you're bleeding. Apocalypse taught me that strength is always defined by the person holding the measuring stick. Mr. Sinister taught me that fascination without empathy is just predation with better vocabulary. Bastion taught me that the most dangerous hatred is the kind that doesn't feel like hatred at all. And Magneto taught me that the distance between never again and never again for us is the most dangerous gap in human psychology. X-Men 97 is not just a cartoon. It's not just nostalgia. It's a study in how villains think and how close any of us could get to becoming one if we stopped examining our own convictions. There's more X-Men 97 features to come on this channel as the show evolves. Drop a comment. Which of these villains do you think has the most dangerous philosophy? And why? I read every single one. For more insane villainy from the MCU, watch this next video.